Yesterday we were looking at what were the causes of the fall of the Roman Empire, and we saw that they are in several different areas. We saw, first of all, that there were problems politically, and then we saw that there were problems economically. And in the process, we also looked at a comparison between what was happening in the Roman Empire and what is happening today in our own country, as it appears that we are also declining. The third area that we want to consider in the collapse of the Roman Empire is moral decay. It's coming. Oh, the title didn't come up. Where's the title? Huh. Missing the title. Huh. It should say moral decay right there. Number 3, moral decay. The first point under moral decay is that contentment was replaced by greed. And that's true of any country, any society. Whenever people become more and more greedy, they become less and less content and much less dependent upon God. So contentment is replaced by greed. And then, for those that did not have, they began to look at the government to supply their needs. They began to look to the government for free grain and for public amusements. So they depended on the government to supply what they could not get themselves. And the Roman government did that more and more. As more and more people were coming into, especially the city of Rome, farmers oftentimes who lost their farms, we talked about that before, the government then was supplying food for them, supplying bread. And then to keep them happy, supplied entertainment through the Circus Maximus, through the Hippodrome, things like that. So people looked to government to supply what they needed. All right, then the third thing is that family life disintegrated. Divorce and immorality abounded, and superstition increased. So, if you remember back at Augustus, Caesar Augustus tried to encourage the family, tried to make laws against immorality, and was not successful because there was no moral foundation. It's not until Christianity comes that there is any kind of a foundation for holding a family together. But throughout the Roman Empire, where Christians are not, aside from Christians, the family life disintegrated. Divorce was extremely common, and immorality abounded. And you can see a lot of that even in certain emperors that we've talked about. And people became very superstitious. All right, now, as you consider this moral decay here, can you see any parallels between what happened in Rome and what has happened in our country in recent years? Griff?
Divorce is still really bad.
Divorce has become a big problem in the United States. And what's even worse in our country now is not only divorce rates maybe aren't going up as much as they were, but that's because people just aren't getting married. And if you're just living together, you don't need a divorce. And so divorce is certainly a big issue today, but immorality is a bigger one. I look in the newspaper every day. By the way, newspaper, that's it's about that big. It's paper and there's printing on it, and it comes out every day and tells you what's happening in the area, around the world. I don't know if any of you have ever seen one or not, but I still get one at my house. And in the newspaper, I think at least once a week, they have a list of who has applied for marriage license in Mahoney County, Columbiana County, Trumbull County. And I always look through there to see if there's anybody I know. But one thing that strikes me is that, and I haven't counted them, but it sure seems like the vast majority of marriage licenses are being bought by people that are living in at the same address. So even those that are getting married are already living together. And then a lot of other people that are living together never bother to getting married. So that is an issue in our country today. Okay, what else? Anything else you see as parallel to what's happening in our land, John?
Greed.
Greed. Yeah, people are more and more want money rather than contentment. I mean, that's one reason why, and I know there are other reasons, but one reason why we have so many families that have two incomes, mother and father both work. You know, oftentimes it's by greed. Now, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes, I mean, your mother's maybe working so that you can be here. That's not greed. But I find that among younger people, people in their 20s and 30s, that they don't want to save and wait for the same things that their parents have now. What took their parents 20, 30, 40 years to gain, they want to have it right now. And so they want the high-paying jobs. They, no matter what, they want to go. They'll go into debt, all kinds of things, in order to have. Okay, what else? We have government supplying food and amusements. Yeah, what do we call it in our country?
Welfare.
Yeah, welfare system. And there are people that depend on that. There are some families that they have been in the welfare system so long, passed on from one generation to another, that the younger ones don't know anything about working a job. They've never seen anybody do it to speak of. It's just assumed that you will have the government pay you. Amusements, I mean, if it gets to the point where when somebody was running for president a few years ago, there were those that were saying that, oh, he's going to give us free phones. We're going to get free phones. And it was interesting, just a couple years ago, there was a glitch, you know, well, I'll get into that, never mind. So we have a lot of people looking to government to not only give free grain and public amusements. Now, politicians are talking about that everyone should get free health care. And everyone should get free college education. Well, the problem with all that is this word. What's the problem? Nothing's free. Somebody has to pay. Somebody paid for that grain and for those amusements. Who paid for it back then?
Government.
Where'd the government get the money? From the people. And who's paying today? Who's paying today for people on welfare, or people to have phones, or health care, or college education? Who's going to pay for all that? The people that are working. All right, so there were political issues, there were economic issues, and moral issues that all contributed to a decline of the Roman Empire. It wasn't just that the barbarians showed up. Any questions? Now, there were several attempts at trying to hold the Roman Empire together. And that's what we want to look at next. Attempts at reform and reorganization. And first, it's from Emperor Diocletian. We've mentioned him several times. Remember, he was a big persecutor of Christians. But he did try to hold the empire together, keep it from falling apart. He was proclaimed emperor by the army in 284. The first thing he did was reshape the political structure of the empire. This is what he did. First of all, he chose a co-emperor known as an Augustus. He just made up a name, called it an Augustus. Are you not finding it, Matthew?
We're like missing.
It goes from 28 to 30.
You're missing page 29,
Yeah.
and so you're not seeing this. Look behind the other pages. Maybe you got mixed up. No? All right, we will stop there today, and I will see if I can find our missing pages. If you are doing this from another location, you need to see me or check your box to get the pages that are missing. And then we will look at the attempts at reform and reorganization next time. The only assignment that you have then is to look over the materials we have so far, because the day after our next time together, we're going to have a test over this material. So go over it, teach it to somebody else, quiz each other about it, and hopefully we can complete this for us on Monday.